Welcome to the International Teacher Podcast with your host, Matt the Family Guy, Kent the Cat Guy, and me, Greg the Single Guy. We are recording episodes from around the globe to tell you about the best kept secret in education. That's right, it's teaching overseas. We're glad to have you join us.
Hey, welcome to the International Teacher Podcast. I'm Kent the Cat Guy, and with me here today is...
Greg the Single Guy.
Hi, Greg. And where is Matt the Family Guy today?
We still haven't found him. He's lost somewhere. We're going to get him back on the show. Well, Kent, you're in charge of this podcast. I usually set him up, but you've set up a great interview right now, and we have two special guests with us. Can you bring them in for us, and we'll quit talking?
I would love to bring them in. We are so fortunate today because if I hear anything from the ITP listeners, they say, can you bring us some teachers who have some experience at the Aramco Schools? And we don't have just one, but we have two teachers who are teaching at the Aramco Schools who are going to talk about their experience working in Aramco, maybe talk a little about their journeys as international teachers, and their special project that they've just started that they're going to tell you about. ITP listeners, you're getting in on the ground level. Let me bring in both of you. Hello, Darian. Hello, Angela.
Hello.
Hey,
it's so
how's
great
it
to
going?
be here. My name is Angela. I am a Canadian girl, but I've been overseas for 18 years, I believe it is. I am a mother of two beautiful girls. One is 16, one is 14. My husband also works here. He works at the middle school, and I'm at elementary school. And on my spare time, I like to stay active and read books and just hang out with family and friends. That's the elevator Angela speech. That's just me in a wrap.
All right, my name is Darian Batten. I've been overseas for approximately 8 years. I hail from the metropolitan area of Chuckatuck, Virginia, where the population is about 3,000. So it's perfect that I landed here in Udalia, where small size and just looking forward to meeting new people. I've been here for about a year. For Saudi Aramco, I didn't know it when I came here, but there are approximately 4 different camps, and I happen to live in the smallest of the camp. I think the population in this specific compound is anywhere from 750 to 1,500, depending on how many people are there. And so it's about the radius of about 5 kilometers. And so it's a small camp, but it causes for great connections between people. And it's in the middle of nowhere. It's a camper's dream, as you would put it. So it's been great. The transition has been great.
So I'm at another Aramco camp called Ras Tanura. This camp is on the beach. It's a long, skinny camp where it kind of all faces the ocean. You know, I heard Darian talk about population, and I was like, I don't know if I can guess what our population. It's bigger than Udalia. It is bigger. I mean, I know the school sizes here, and so I don't know if that. I'm just going to throw it out there and guess about 3,000 people, but maybe it's too much. It's a nice size camp. Not too big, not too small. You can still go to the grocery store and not know people. It's a little bit more of a tourist destination. We have a couple of Aramco hotels here, so people can do a getaway to Ras Tanura and come stay at the beach. And so there's quite a few people on camp that the population kind of grows. It's a beautiful, lovely place to be able to reside.
All right, so both of you guys work for Saudi Aramco, and they're a big name in international education. It's mainly, I think, when I look at the job fairs and look at all the information for schools, they're top dollar. Like, they look like this big package, right? And they tons of money are thrown at you. And my question is, how did you guys recruit for it? Did you have multiple interviews? Did you go to a job fair? Either one of you can go first. You probably have different stories.
I can go. Greg, I love that you kind of just approach the elephant in the room, because that's just like the number one. That's what people kind of want to know. That's what Aramco's known for, and so I appreciate you just putting it out there. It's the one that kind of boasts a very competitive salary. For us, our story was that we put our information up on ISS, I think it was. At the time, the principals were doing their recruiting, and we had a principal. We were at a different Aramco camp, and it was called Abcake, and it's one that's closer to where Darian is. And we were, we had a couple interviews, and in my head, I was like, oh, we'll never go to Saudi Arabia. I mean, I wasn't interested in moving to the desert. And then the more we learned, once we had the interviews, the more we knew that this would be a good fit for our family. So that was 11 years ago.
And Angela, where were you? You're married. Your husband's name is Kevin. Can you walk us a little bit more through your journey to getting to Aramco? Because you were at another school before that. I know at least one.
2004, we got married. I didn't have my teaching degree, but we were going to move to Egypt for 1 year. We were just going for 1 year. We were like, it's a 1 year contract, and Kevin was a teacher, and I was like, I'll just go and volunteer. And we showed up in Alexandria, Egypt, and the grade 1 teacher did not show up. So the principal of the school said, I need a grade 1 teacher. How would you like to do it? And I was like, how hard could it be? In grade 1, don't they just like have naps? Like, it's super naive, right? Super, super naive. So I said, sure, I'll teach grade 1. So without any training or anything, I did grade 1 that year and actually came to really like teaching. So we finished our year there, and then we moved to China. We lived in the south of China. We worked at a boarding school called Udaloy, and we had a great, great time. Tons of really good friends and really good memories there. So we lived in China for 4 years. I got my teaching degree then, and we had a couple kids in China. And then we moved to Korea, and we worked at Korea International School for 3 years. And then we came to Saudi and had no idea that we'd be here this long, but it's been a good adventure.
So that was, am I counting right? That's 4 different international positions, right? Starting in Egypt. So Egypt, China, Korea,
China,
and then
yep,
Saudi Arabia, right? Okay. And thank you for sharing that. And Darian, how are you, buddy? What's your story?
Oh, I started teaching internationally 7 or 8 years ago. We went to the UAE, and I taught there for those 7 years after coming from the US. And so I taught in a UAE public school for 3 years, and I taught in a British school, which was interesting, for 3 years. And then, so I guess that's 6 years. And then after that, we came to Saudi Arabia, where it was interesting. Like you said, they present a great package. But I think when I first came here, I was interested to see what was going to be the sacrifice for the package. Like, what was going to be a trade-off? Were you going to put me in a place where I gotta lift weights in order to survive? But it turned out to be, I have to say, probably one of my top teaching experiences, with the ideology for the classes, the suggested readings, and the self-improvement that is available at your fingertips if you so desire.
I just told the story the other day. When I was working in Korea, teachers were having lunch together. This one person started talking about Aramco Schools. Like, it was like this mythical creature. Like, it wasn't real. And they're like, no, it's this place, and you live in these compounds. And I'd never seen a compound. I didn't know what that would look like. And in my mind, I thought something much smaller. And then this man continues like, no, there's golf courses, and there's movie theaters. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. And I was like, I need to know more about this. It was like an urban legend to the teachers. We kind of had our eyes and ears open for it after I'd heard initially of Aramco. And we were pretty darn excited when we got the job.
As a single person, I've seen Aramco always as a family place. Like, I think once or twice back, 10 years ago, I might have applied to Aramco thinking, well, I'll just sort of shoot the moon and do the shotgun effect to a couple different schools. Never heard back from them. I haven't heard a whole lot from single people. Are there a lot of single people there? That's my question.
It's an interesting question. I think I observed this during the pandemic. I was a coach at the time, and so really kind of trying to take take account of the mental well-being of our staff and how I can best support everybody. And I kind of did a little bit of a, account of how many single people we have. I think my school is a bit of an anomaly. We have about 10 single people out of a staff of 25. We have a lot of single people here. And so I think, single people create their own community with themselves. I think Aramco is a very family-friendly company and school to work for. We have our lunches off, and I get to see my children every lunch, and that's so special. And we are home at 4:00. It's a very family understanding place, and that has always been really wonderful. It can be, I think, lonesome for if you're in a secluded camp as a single person, for sure.
Darian, what was your journey like coming into contact with Aramco and coming into Aramco, and what would Udalia be like for a single person?
All right, I'm going to answer those in reverse order because that's what I feel like they came. So I think we got three, a smooth three. So I don't know whether we need to send those up to Rostanora or keep them here, but it can be at Udalia because Udalia is so small, and it doesn't have maybe some of the amenities like a beach or maybe some of the amenities of the other camps, and so things tend to be family oriented. But what I will say is that there are three within the school, but within other parts there are more. There are people who are here. Single, they have families other places, and so what tends to happen is people tend to join together and come together in a single capacity. So they'll travel together, or they'll go. There's a huge diving club here, and they'll go diving in the Red Sea together. You tend to have activities where there's not an abundance of single people, but you do get a strong connection between those that are here because there is such a small amount of them as far as who are single, and still quite small when you add those who are here as a single individual, as I came as a single individual as well. And so I was able to kind of, stay in those worlds and kind of dip and dab into those worlds of being single here. And it's a neat experience, I have to say. People are very welcoming. And I think in Udalia, the issue becomes how do I manage my time? Because there are so many people pulling at you to be a part of a lot of various different groups, a lot of different associations, and a lot of different clubs. And there are so many different people pulling at you that it can oftentimes become overwhelming as a single individual. I actually heard about it way before I knew about it, if that makes any sense. I remember it very succinctly. We were buying a couch from this couple. It was a young couple. I'm not sure where they went, but they were leaving the UAE because, the UAE, we felt like we had, oh man, this is awesome. It's kind of open. You get a lot of different cultures. It's one of the most diverse cities in the world. And so we were like, okay, we're cool. We're content. And they were like, they're moving to Saudi. And I was like, why would you move to Saudi? Because the perception is, why would you go from a Middle Eastern country that's less restrictive to a Middle Eastern country that's quote unquote more restrictive? And I was like, why would you do that? And they looked at me like, why wouldn't you? Don't you know, how Saudi is? And I looked at them like, no, I don't. And so we had this kind of exchange, and it was just interesting. And so I took my couch and I left. And so,
But you did end up with a couch.
I did, yeah. I did take the couch, and then I kept, hearing about it. I don't remember the exact person that I heard it from, but it was kind of like little things, and oh man, Saudi Aramco, people working in Riyadh and stuff. So I said, well, let me check this out, and I actually just went on to the website, filled out an application, and interviewed with two people, and I think I said a lot of jokes in my interview. One thing I know is they didn't go over because I got no callback. Sometimes when you're in an interview and you say a joke, you're really risking a lot. You're hoping. And the risk paid off with no reward. There was no callback. There was it was returned to sender. We're just not feeling you, your comedy, and whoever you are. So I ended up saying, you know what, let me fill it out again. So I went back on the website, filled it out again, and this time I got a callback and was like, oh man, we think you'd be great. But we don't have anybody in your position. I said, okay. And so they were like, okay, but just, don't worry about it. Just come. We'll see if we can, get you on. And then they said, you know what, you'd be great. And then COVID happened. And they were like, oh, well, we can't have you here. So we're going to see, how things unfold and things. But, as of right now, no, sir. So I said, okay. All right, let me just hang on. And so I hung on the next year, and the next year they said, well, we would like to have you. And I talked to a couple more people. I had a couple more interviews because I was going into like science. Then it was like, well, we don't have an interview. So it was kind of like a very intricate process, as were many companies of trying to get here. So it was an extended journey, a long journey, but I'm grateful for the journey and the final outcome. That was the opposite of the initial outcome because the interview was a lot of me saying jokes and laughing, and then just stares on the other side. And you know how you do when you say a joke that doesn't land, you're like,
Ah. Just about every day, by the way, for me.
I don't know, Darian. My jokes do really well. I mean, seriously. I've always been hired because of my humor. It sounds like both of you had to go through quite a lot of red tape and a lot of interviewing to get into the position. They're a big, massive company, right? Like some of the other schools I've been at, the whole school is 200 kids and there's 30 staff. And it sounds like you're just at one of those schools out of a little district in Saudi Arabia. So you're not going to necessarily get that friendly little callback right away. So do you both feel sort of like you get lost in the paperwork and they get a lot of different applications every year? It's a big company and they should just stick through it, or do you have some other kind of advice?
Yeah, exactly what you said. Everything you said is spot on. It's just such a huge company. It's a lot of paperwork and it takes a while. And somebody said the comparison that Aramco is like a barge boat. It's just so big. It moves really slowly, and I feel like that kind of metaphor seems to work for the hiring process. It's slow, but it's worth it in the end. You just got to hang in there and have some faith.
So let me go back to one thing that Darian said before, and you can both chime in on this. What's the negative side? There's a drawback somewhere, or is it just all Shangri-La?
First of all, I'm going to say that there's no downside. I think the adjustment is real. Even coming from another Middle Eastern country and one that's on its border, the adjustment to Saudi Arabia is real. The adjustment to compound life, it just takes getting used to. I would say patience, learning a whole another level of patience takes some getting used to. I would say for my family, I think it was the opposite. They had to get used to people being so friendly, having a house where people drop by. We had to get used to the kids having so much autonomy because they jump on their bikes and they go everywhere, especially in Udalia. That's the benefits of a small camp. A lot of the facilities, once you turn 8 years old, you can go independently, whether that's to swimming, they'll let you into the ping pong, the pool tables. That type of stuff was an adjustment for the family. But I would say personally, when I came here, especially as a single individual, so to speak, the seclusion on a compound is real. And having to come up with strategies in order to ensure whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, to ensure that you are mentally healthy and that you are getting your bucket filled with the population and the people and those that surround you. It can be a real struggle, real struggle.
When you were describing children, it really harkens back to maybe all of our children, all of our childhoods, where it was sort of run out and play and come back sometime when the streetlights come on. There's not a lot of that in the cities these days in the United States, but it really feels like that old 80s, 70s feel.
100%, because we can actually use those terms. Like, hey, we tell our kids, look, when it starts to get dark, come on back home, or because, they're young. They don't have like watches and phones yet. So, just come on back when it starts. Whose house are you going over? Just let us know. And just it's really a time back into what the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, that nostalgic culture of the village raising the children, because we also have a connection with those families, and you tend to know them. You tend to go over to their houses to know both parties, and it's really nostalgic in that manner.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Everything Darian's saying, I totally agree with. It's been a wonderful place to raise our children. With that said, I believe that no place is perfect. Being an international teacher that's hopped around, every place you go, you're like, this works for us. This part I don't like. And so that's the same with living here. There's definitely pros and cons. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're a big city person and you like to go out for dinner and you like to go to shows, and this is not the place for you because it is quiet living. There's this lack of kind of modern conveniences, I guess. But if you're a glass is half full kind of person, you're like, well, we save a heck of a lot more money when you got to make your own dinner like all the time, every single day, because there's no other options. There's different ways to look at it.
Let me tell you something. What's cool? One of the reasons I'd asked you guys a little bit about downsides is because when I lived in Venezuela and taught there, and Matt, our other co-host, we both lived there. The downside was that we didn't have power. We didn't have water for like a week, right? It was tough to get in and out of the country. There were realistic things that we make light of now, but they're really hardships to get used to living there. And it sounds like you guys have I would imagine anytime you go to the Middle East, I was in Kuwait for a couple of years, and the religious stuff, there's a lot of things going on, and we don't have to necessarily go over those, but that's I guess the genesis of my question, right? And
yeah, should I go ahead? Is everything okay with the?
sounds like a
I
vacuum
got a little
cleaner.
buzz going.
Sure.
Sounds like a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, there's a vacuum cleaner.
Yo, my man.
All right, let's pick up at Angela's response. Did you need Greg to repeat the question?
No, I can't just stop laughing.
Greg's out. I'm cutting him out. Hold on. Hey, folks. It's Cat the Cat Guy here. When Greg's away, cats will play, and I'm here to let you know that if you're looking for any last-minute gift ideas, why not pick up a copy of Finding the Right Fit by our very own Gregory Lemoine. It's available in both online and print editions at www.amazon.com or wherever you buy your finer books. And now, back to the program.
So I think I could speak a little bit to it though. As a woman living in Saudi Arabia, being here for 11 years, there has been such drastic changes, massive changes. So if this is a podcast that anyone's listening to, if they're on the fence about moving to Saudi Arabia, I can tell you when I first came here, I could not drive my own car, and I always wore an abaya, and it felt a little more. It was hard. That part was frustrating. But it was, I was like, okay, I agreed to come here. I need to deal with these frustrations that were a part of living here. But it's quite different, like I think it was a couple of years ago. I was driving, me and my girlfriends, we were going to the opening of a cultural center called ITRA in Saudi Arabia. And we were going to a show that they were putting on, and we were going to go out for dinner first. And we don't have to wear abayas. We dress conservatively, we don't have like shoulder showing and whatever, but it was winter when I was wearing jeans and a sweater and feeling very comfortable. And I like paused the car and all the talk in there, and I said, let's just appreciate what's happening right now. We are driving to a cultural center. We're in Saudi Arabia. We're going to go out for dinner. I mean, it was miles from where we had come just, in just a couple of years. It's been very, I feel very privileged to see this kind of seismic shift that's happened in this culture and this society here in the last couple of years. It's been really for me. It feels positive that I drive now.
And they went from the cultural center. Now they got Groove on the Grass and DJ Khaled. was here, and Post Malone was here, and Usher, and all that. All they were all here. Like, it seems like, just from listening to you, like, it's grown so much.
I agree with that. Yeah.
I take that. I don't say grown. I mean, it's changed. It's changed so much.
Thank you both for chiming in on that. I mean, we can go to another subject, but I think what I really love was hearing from Angela, hearing from you for the sake of our listeners, because going to the Middle East is a question for many people, in just because they hear Middle East and they get a little bit, scared or on the offensive. And then as a woman, it's great to hear your point of view. And that's what we're missing. So in all earnesty, thank you very much. And on the side there, I'm sort of wondering, can you come over to ITP instead of your podcast? Because we're going to kick Kent off of here. It's better to have a woman than a cat guy. And I think Matt would agree.
Segue. As misguided as it was, it's a perfect segue. I understand that the two of you are undertaking a brand new project.
All right. Our new project is called Just to Know You. And I have the privilege of working with Ms. Angela Carskaddon, and just vibing off each other, just getting to know individual stories, how you came to Saudi Arabia, Saudi Aramco, just getting to know who you are and who you are brings value to where we are.
Ooh, I like that tagline. I feel like it came from like this place where I feel, I would go to a social event and I would talk to people and I would just sit and I was like, man, people like talking about themselves, And then the second observation I had is people are interesting and they have stories to tell. And when you give them a platform and when you ask some questions, there's stories in there. That's where all of this came from, was giving a platform for people to talk about it. And then also in doing that, it's going to make us feel more connected. Darian and I are probably, I don't know, how far of a drive is it? Like 3-4 hours from your camp to mine. Aramco is spread over a really large geographical area. And at times we work for this big school and this big company, and you can feel disconnected. And Darian and I last year were both part of a committee in the school district called the Belonging Committee. And so that's kind of where all of this came from. How can we make us all feel like we belong here and make some connections and listen to some stories and, talk to some people?
You better go, Carskaddon. You better plug that thing. Man, you better plug it.
Well done.
There you go.
It sounds like you're very similar to the ITP, because we have a lot of guests on, and Kent and I and Matt just sit around and talk sometimes. We like to have guests on from all over the world, like you are right now, coming from Saudi Arabia. The coolest thing, it sounds like it's a little bit different flavor because you're only drawing upon the people that you work with or the people in your community that may or may not work at the schools, but live in your community of Saudi Arabia, that you're in multiple communities also working for the same company. That sounds awesome. So when do we get to be on your show?
They tell me there's a waiting list.
We love to talk about ourselves. That's why we have a whole podcast just about us.
Angela was referring to us when she said that, I think. Oh, it's amazing. I wanted to say this earlier. It's amazing when you tell people you're moving to the Middle East, because people who have never even left their state or province in the West all of a sudden become experts about the Middle East and are willing to tell you everything they know about it. I am very excited about your guys' project. You guys are both so fun to listen to and so fun to talk to. And boy, have you guys ever got emails from friends or family or other teachers that just said, "Hey, I know that you work for Aramco. Could you drop my name on that list?" Because you will now.
Yeah. I hope so.
Any cop stories from overseas?
Well, I'm from America, so I have more American cop stories.
Do you want to share one of your police stories from America?
No, not at all.
Okay, we'll put, again, that'll go on the Patreon account. hear Darian talk about his brush with the police. $5 a month.
No, no, not at all.
Okay, fair point, Mr. Batten. Fair point. Miss Angela, do you have a police story you would like to share with the ITP crowd?
Well, I mean, I hate to disappoint with the police story. I have I have like a what's it called when you customs story,
Oh,
I
that
guess.
counts. That counts,
Okay.
definitely.
All right. When we lived in China, our two daughters were born there, and the second one, she was born in September, and we were going home for Christmas, and I was bringing home my new baby, and I was excited to bring her home to all our relatives in Canada. And so I had a 2-month-old, a 2-year-old, and then because China has very cheap things, my husband and I bought both of our dad's fake golf clubs. Like, I forget the name of the golf clubs. So we had 2 golf club bags, a pack and play, and then our suitcases for going home. So we are like a traveling circus. And so when we got to the border crossing, we were in China and we were crossing the border into Hong Kong, and our flight left out of Hong Kong. And we got to the train station, and I kind of like rolled up with like everything, like this big whoomp to the window, and I handed over the passport, and I don't speak Chinese, and there was a lot of talking behind there, and they talked to each other and whatever. And it turns out that when your child is born in China, you need permission to leave China. And we had not gotten permission from the government to leave.
What do you do if they say no? I'm sorry.
And I was a mother with like my children, and all I wanted to do was go home and just bring my children home. And I was exhausted and hadn't started our travel day, but we'd been counting down, and just to be told, no, you're not allowed to leave. I recognize now that I take my freedom for granted. I don't question it. I don't value it, or I'm not appreciative of it very often. And when it was taken away, my freedom I did not have permission to leave China. That was different. That was a horrible feeling for us. So, and I kind of got like, what's going on? No. I'm taking away. And the lady said, you can go, your baby stays here. And I was like, all right, I'll back off a little bit. I was like,
I don't know. She's still kind of new. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
50-50.
Oh, she cries a lot. Are you sure?
They're like, no, ma'am, take her.
I mean, it's not like you're stealing a lamp or something, trying to get out of China. These are your
You're leaving the
children.
baby behind, but you got the fake golf clubs. You're taking those.
I love this. We're going to have to switch over ITP to custom stories now. Darian, do you have a custom story?
No, man, I try to stay under the radar.
The man travels the entire world, and the only time he's ever had trouble with the police is his own hometown.
Exactly. Like we've had, like, when it comes to the police, we've had nothing but awesome. One thing about the UAE that was kind of neat was the way that they thought of children. So if there was anything, as far as like in the airport, and myself, and the kids were in line, a police officer would come escort us to the front and make sure that, hey, this is a family. They have newborns. We had a police officer that made sure that we got a certain seat on the flight, changes for them. And it's just, we've been kind of, fortunate in that capacity. And once we left,
I want one of those.
And the United States,
I want one of those police officers. Can I have one of those? Where can I get one of those?
Do you want to get a little doll baby like people in the HOV
No, I want the police officer. I want the police officer that's going to sit me in my seat.
You need the babies first. Did you catch the story?
Darren, I went back to, let me go on to a custom story. It's sort of a weird story, but Darian, I was in the UAE when I lived back in 2004. I lived in Egypt. That was not in Alexandria like Angela and Kevin did, but I lived in Cairo, and my roommate named Mooney, he and I went for a weekend, we went to UAE, went to Dubai, right? So we go into Dubai, and back in 2004, it was one airport, like with one terminal, and it was a big, huge mall, right? So you just go in through security, you're in the mall, and then you leave. So I had put my passport inside of the book that I was reading. It's like some kind of I don't know, one of those New York Times bestsellers or something. And I put my passport in there and my ticket for the plane. And we're taking Egypt Air back, which is never on time. So we go shopping. And I must have set my book down because we're shopping around. We got one bottle of alcohol. We went and got some cigarettes for somebody else or whatever we're looking at. And we get up to the, Mooney and I get up to the counter to leave, and I don't have my ticket. I don't have my passport. I have nothing. At least I was inside of security, but I had nothing with me and I couldn't leave. I mean, I'm like, okay, see you, Mooney. And I had to arrange for a place to stay with his friends that extra night. I didn't know what to do, but first I had to find my passport. So yeah, I had a police guy. This was nice. UAE people are really nice. The police head security guy walks with me around the mall about twice, like for about 2 hours. And we're going back. He's like, where did you go shopping? Where did you go here? Or did you stand over here? And it ended up that one of the women from behind the counter had taken my book and my passport and hidden it underneath the register. And it was just like a bad choice for a woman to do that. And because our passports are a big currency. And I can only think that's why she did it. There was no money in it, but it was my US passport and my tickets. And anyway, I received those, and I got stuck overnight in Dubai. I had to spend another night and call up his friends and arrange for a place to stay. And I missed a day of school and all that because I put my passport inside of my book. Those are my customs stories there, Kent.
Darian and Angela, as we wind down, is there any final thoughts that you would like to share with the ITP crowd?
I just think that when it comes to, I come from a neighborhood where, both of my family grew up on the same street, and I know a lot of people haven't, gotten on planes or traveled. And I would just say on the International Teaching Podcast, if you're even thinking about it, give it a try, because if it fails miserably, then most of the time, if you don't do anything crazy, you can go back home. Okay, so if you don't kind of put your foot out there and take that step, then you could miss out on an opportunity that could change your life. And I think secondly, man, it's what you put into it, and it's more than that. Like when I think about my children and their experiences and how they view the world and the teachers that they've had, they think more about ethnicity and location than they do about race. It's more so about, and where I am from in America is very race based, but they'll say things about teaching. And I had a teacher from Canada, and then from Ireland, and then from South Africa. Then I had a teacher that was just from these different places across the globe, and they've had classmates, and it causes them to view their world on a global scale and not necessarily through the lens of just where I come from. If you're thinking about it, if you are on the fence, go ahead and step over it just a little bit.
I would just add to that and if you're listening to this and you are interested in going to Aramco, then listen to our podcast, Just to Know You, because we are interviewing Aramcons. And, I just did an interview with a teacher last week, and she talked about her experiences in Saudi. Man, there's, when you get out there, there's so much to be discovered, and the stories are fantastic. So it's been a blast so far.
So, Angela, we can find you, and our listeners can pop over to your podcast and listen to Just to Know You. And I believe you have the website also we can put in the notes. It's just to know you at podbean.com, I believe. And on that website, you have all of your links so they can listen to any of the podcast catchers that they want to. So whether it's on iTunes or if they want to listen to Podbean or Spotify, those are all out there for you. We'll put those in the notes for both you and Darian to get more listeners out there. I can't wait to listen. I've listened to the first two. They're fantastic. And I am gonna trade you in, Kent, for Angela. She's and I think Darian is funnier than you too. I think people are going to stop listening to us, and they're just going to start listening to Just to Know
They're
You.
just going to switch right on
That's
over.
it. We might as well pack up and go, Kent. Right?
I would put Darian and Angela on YouTube because, unlike us, they're very photogenic.
Well, we have faces for radio, as Matt used to say.
Faces for radio, as Matt tells us. All right, I'm going to bring us on out as we are running up against about an hour. This is Kent saying, on behalf of Greg and myself, thank you for tuning in this week on ITP. And I'd also like to thank our guests, Darian and Angela, co-hosts of the Just to Know You podcast, and teachers at Aramco. Thank you, Darian, and thank you, Angela.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having us. It's been great.
And join our Patreon for the extended version of Darian's police stories. Until next time, we'll see you. And goodbye.